Welcome to WealthShot, smart strategies, real results. I'm your guide to building real wealth, one lesson at a time. In 1976, a man named Jack Bogle launched an investment fund that Wall Street immediately mocked. They called it Bogle's Folly. They said it was un-American to aim for average. One major investment firm refused to underwrite it, calling it a sure failure. That fund, the first index fund available to ordinary investors, now has over $9 trillion in assets. And the people who laughed at it spent the next 50 years consistently losing to it. This is the story of the laziest, most boring, and most powerful investing strategy ever created. And by the end of this video, you will understand exactly why the smartest investors in the world cannot beat it, and why you do not need to even try. Let us start with a question most people never think to ask. When you pay a professional to manage your money, what exactly are you paying for? The assumption is expertise. The idea is that a trained professional with Bloomberg terminals, research teams, and decades of experience can look at the market and identify opportunities that ordinary investors miss. That is the pitch. That is what the fees are supposed to buy. Here is what the data actually shows. Every 6 months, S&P Dow Jones Indices publishes what is called the SPIVA scorecard, the most comprehensive, longest-running independent measure of how professional fund managers actually perform against simple market indexes. The 2025 year-end results are striking. In 2025 alone, 79% of active large-cap fund managers underperformed the S&P 500. That was worse than the 65% underperformance rate in 2024, and the fourth worst year for active managers in the entire 25-year history of the scorecard. At the 15-year horizon, the picture becomes even more severe. Not a single one of the 22 tracked fund categories had a majority of active managers outperforming their benchmark. 0 out of 22. After 15 years of trying with every advantage money can buy, professional fund managers as a group cannot beat a fund that simply buys everything and waits. Before we go further, let us understand exactly what an index fund is, because the concept is both simple and counterintuitive. The S&P 500 is a list of the 500 largest publicly traded companies in the United States. It includes companies like Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Johnson & Johnson, and 496 others. An S&P 500 index fund does not try to pick the best companies on that list. It buys all 500 of them in proportion to their size and holds them. When the economy grows and these companies collectively become more valuable, the fund grows with them. When one company declines, the others compensate. No one is deciding which stocks to buy or sell. No research team is analyzing earnings reports at midnight. No portfolio manager is making judgment calls based on market intuition. The fund simply mirrors what the market itself does. John Bogle, the man who created this structure, described it in the simplest possible terms. He said, "Do not look for the needle in the haystack. Just buy the haystack." What he meant was this: instead of trying to identify the next apple before it becomes Apple, own a small piece of every company, including the next apple, without needing to know which one it will be. Now here's where it gets genuinely interesting. Why cannot professionals beat this? They have advantages that ordinary investors will never have. They have information, experience, access, and sophisticated tools. The answer comes down to 3 forces working against them simultaneously. The first is fees. A typical actively managed fund charges between 1% and 2% of your investment every single year. That sounds small, but consider what it actually means. Over 20 years, a 1% annual fee on a $100,000 investment does not cost you 1%. It costs you approximately $50,000 in lost compounding. The index fund charges 0.03 to 0.1%. That difference compounds against active managers every single year before they have even made a single investment decision. The second force is survivorship bias. When you hear that a specific fund manager had a great 10-year run, you are hearing about a survivor. What you are not hearing about are the hundreds of funds that launched in the same period, underperformed, and quietly closed. They disappear from the record. What remains is the handful of managers who got lucky. And SPIVA's persistence data, published in their 2025 report, confirms exactly this. Managers who outperform in one period show almost no ability to consistently outperform in the next. The outperformance, when it occurs, is statistically consistent with luck rather than skill. The third force is what Nobel Prize-winning economist Eugene Fama described through his efficient market hypothesis. In a market with thousands of intelligent participants all analyzing the same information, prices reflect what is collectively known almost instantly. For a professional manager to consistently beat the market, they would need to consistently know things that thousands of other highly motivated, well-funded professionals do not. At scale, over time, that is an extraordinarily difficult thing to do. Not impossible, but rare enough that betting on finding it is not a sound financial strategy for most people. In 2006, Warren Buffett made this point with a bet. He wagered $500,000 that a simple Vanguard S&P 500 index fund would outperform any collection of hedge funds over 10 years. Hedge funds are the elite tier of active management. They charge far higher fees, deploy far more sophisticated strategies, and attract some of the most mathematically gifted people in finance. Only one firm took the bet. After 10 years, Buffett's index fund returned 126%. The hedge funds returned an average of 36%. Not one of the 5 selected funds beat the index. Buffett donated his winnings to charity. And in his 2016 annual letter to Berkshire Hathaway shareholders, he wrote that if a statue is ever built to honor the person who has done the most for American investors, the choice should be Jack Bogle. So what do you actually do? Here is the practical implementation in 4 steps. Step 1. Choose a total market or S&P 500 index fund from a low-cost provider. Vanguard, Fidelity, and Schwab all offer options with expense ratios below 0.1%. You do not need to research individual stocks. You do not need to time the market. You need to choose one fund and commit to it. Step 2. Invest consistently, regardless of what the market is doing. This is called dollar cost averaging. When the market is down, your regular contribution buys more shares. When it is up, your existing shares are worth more. Over time, this smooths out the volatility that causes most investors to make costly emotional decisions. Step 3. Reinvest dividends automatically. Most index funds pay dividends from the underlying companies. Setting them to reinvest automatically means those dividends buy additional shares, which generate their own dividends, which buy more shares. This is compound growth accelerating itself without any action from you. Step 4. Do not touch it. This is the hardest step and the most important one. The average investor significantly underperforms the funds they invest in because they sell during downturns and buy back in after markets recover, buying high and selling low in exactly the wrong sequence. The index fund's return assumes you hold it. Most people do not hold it. The investors who do are the ones who end up with the number on the chart instead of a much smaller number representing what their emotional decisions actually delivered. Let us put this together with a final number that makes the entire argument concrete. Between 1926 and 2025, the U.S. stock market has returned an average of approximately 10% per year, including dividends. $1 invested in a broad U.S. market index in 1926 would be worth over $9,000 today. Not because someone made brilliant decisions along the way, because the engine of American business compounded for nearly a century, and the index owned all of it. You do not need to be brilliant to access that return. You need to be consistent, patient, and resistant to the very human urge to do something clever when doing nothing is the winning move. That is everything for episode 4. If this gave you one idea you will actually act on this week, please hit the like button. It helps more people find this channel. Subscribe so you never miss a weekly lesson. And share this with one person in your life who needs to hear it. This is WealthShot. Smart strategies. Real results. See you next week.